New research calls into question traditional theories of leadership. Joining us for this week's Smith Business Close-Up is Professor Paul Tesluk, chair of the Department of Management and Organization and co-director of the newly formed Center for Leadership, Innovation, and Change. Professor, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
So to start with, where do traditional theories of leadership fall short?
Well, traditionally we think of leadership and leaders as almost one and the same. And if you think, though, about it a little bit differently, if you think about leadership really as all about having effective influence and being able to get agendas accomplished, be able to drive change by working with and through other people, then if you think more generally about that and how to be able to utilize talent across a team, how to be able to be adaptive and most responsive, then we start to think more creatively about how to be able to utilize effective leadership through influence. Influence in a team requires setting direction. It requires figuring out how to handle a complex problem or business challenge by utilizing a variety of resources. It requires how to figure out how to get a team to work effectively together. All of those different kinds of influence can come from different sources. And some of the things that we're finding in our research that we're doing here at the Smith School of Business is that teams that are effectively able to lead themselves by sharing influence and working dynamically in that type of a fashion are able to be more adaptive, more responsive, and better utilize the knowledge that they have at their disposal.
So when we're talking about shared leadership, there are some workplaces that have a more collaborative style, and then there are others that are more top-down, regimented, militaristic, maybe. Don't you need some sort of guidance no matter how it works?
Absolutely. I mean, the irony of this is that shared leadership actually implies that the manager, the person who's positioned above the team in the organizational hierarchy, is actually more important in terms of the leadership that they provide. What's important, though, is that they provide a different type of leadership. It means shifting from, as you were saying, kind of a command and control, directive type of a style to one that's more empowering, that's more enabling, that essentially kind of puts the conditions in place for a team to allow them to be able to share leadership roles and responsibilities among themselves.
I guess it really depends who's on the team, how this turns out.
It absolutely does. And so what that means is that it's more critical than ever for a manager to carefully think about who they bring into the team, how they onboard them, the types of training and development experiences that they provide to team members, because you're talking more than just technical competence in being able to be successful as a member of a team, but also in terms of having effective influence, effective leadership, if you will.
So when a big corporation looks at this research, what do they take away from it? Are there some companies that operate this way, or are there some that dismiss it as just being impractical?
Well, one of the things that we find that's very convincing when we speak with organizations that are thinking about redesigning how they approach leadership and rethinking that is we point to examples, industry leaders in a variety of different industries. Everything from Southwest Airlines is kind of a classic example that really kind of redefined the airline industry by taking a very fundamentally different approach to the way they think about leadership. And it really embodies a lot of these things that I was just mentioning about shared leadership. W.L. Gore, which is known as one of the most innovative companies in the world, makers of Gore-Tex and a variety of other, they come out with thousands of patents every year. They really rely very heavily on shared leadership for their design and their engineering teams to come up with constantly great creative ideas. So you point to those examples and you find what they're doing in terms of how they rely on frontline employees to exert some strong leadership and influence. And that's really offers a lot of promise for organizations that are trying to get that competitive advantage.
You know, I was going to ask you if this is applicable to small business, but then thinking about it, are small businesses sort of naturally operating in teams?
That's a great question, and they are. In fact, small businesses have that real advantage. A lot of them do operate in teams, and a lot of them also have that added advantage of they don't have the organizational structures and the bureaucracies that are there over time that may hinder or encumber the development of shared leadership. In fact, we're working with a small organization now that is based on some very strong principles of self-management and shared leadership. And what they're wrestling with now is how do they maintain that competitive advantage as they grow in size.
Have you suggested shared leadership to the deans at the university?
Well, we actually practice a little bit of what we preach here. The center that I'm involved in, there's 3 of us who work as co-directors. What it does mean is that we have to think really clearly about the kinds of roles and responsibilities and how they can work together rather than working at cross purposes. Right. It does require a lot of work and discipline.
Professor Paul Tesluk joining us from the Smith School of Business. Sir, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeff.